Oh, great. We're live.
We are live. Nice.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. And we see that people are still dropping in a bit. So before we get started fully, we'll give it,
Let's wait a little.
a bit of time.
Yeah, there's been a great response on this webinar.
It has.
Not only from Sweden, actually, and that's why if some of you knows us, we do speak Swedish, but that's why we do this event in English, because we have listeners from across the globe, actually. Also some customers listening in and working from different parts of the world, which is exciting, I think.
Yeah, super nice. Actually, we can actually start by that, by those of you who are listening in now before we start the event fully. But if you see that there's a chat box down there, it would be great if you just want to write where you're from. And then we'll see that.
Good idea.
Yeah. Nice. But now it's 1 minute past 11. Let's get started with this SustainLab webinar about 5 must-know sustainability reporting insights for both 2024 but also beyond. My name is Maria Svantemark. I'm CEO and co-founder of SustainLab.
Yeah, and my name is Sofie Bergdahl, and I'm a customer success manager at SustainLab.
Yeah. Good, then you know who we are. And before we dive in, as I said, there is this chat box that you are welcome to use. I see that people are writing in it, so that's great. There is also a questions box. So at any time during this webinar that you have a question, please post it in that questions box and we will get to it in the Q&A in the end. So very, very shortly then only about SustainLab before we dive into this topic. SustainLab is a full sustainability solution provider featuring an automated and easy-to-use sustainability data management platform.
Good word.
A long sentence. But basically, we help you with all your data management when it comes to sustainability. And in addition to the platform, we also offer consultancy services, either in-house or together with our great partners, which we are super thankful for. And the reason why we wanted to do this particular topic is that with a lot of potential customers we talk to, they express again and again the struggles with sustainability reporting and how unsmooth it is. At the same time, we help our customers with this again and again, and we see these challenges that are replicable between companies, and we help them solve them again and again. So we wanted to share a bit of these.
And I think it's super important to remember, and know many of you know this, but the sustainability landscape is evolving as we speak, and we still haven't met any customer who nails every detail about the sustainability reporting yet. However, most of them are very happy to share insights among them other, and they also appreciate very much when we can learn from one customer and use it to help one other. And that's why we also want to share this with you today, and why we're also listening in very much to what we learn and continue to evolve our processes as we go. It's exciting.
It is.
And we will sometimes, we know that many of you who are listening in are sustainability managers, or more in one or another way in charge of the sustainability reporting. So we will sometimes during this webinar refer to you, and then we mean you as the person in charge of the sustainability reporting. However, don't drop off if you are not in charge, or if you're involved in any other way, or just curious and interested in this topic. I hope you will get some insights as well.
I'm sure. Let's dive into the first insight. So, insight number 1. One thing we can really recommend is for you to decide on a strategy for each group of data reporter. What do we mean by this? Well, when it comes to sustainability reporting, there's usually a lot of people involved to get to the data you need. I experienced that myself in my previous role as sustainability manager. The company I was in at that time was active on 17 markets and had 14 own factories. And I had a couple of hundred people that I had to manage to get to the data I wanted. And just that whole administrative management of data reporters took so much time. And it would have been so much smarter if I did it a bit differently than I did. And that's what we want to share now. So by differentiating between your different types of data reporters, you can create different strategies. And one clear differentiation is between the ones that are internal in your organization and the ones who aren't. So for the internal data reporters, the ones that are in your organization, your colleagues you need help from, make sure that you set up a data collection process that is based on the underlying data or the source data, which we will refer to in this webinar quite a lot. That will help you so much, and make sure that that process is replicable after, not just for this reporting period, but also for next and next and next. And make sure that you get your colleagues on board, make them hyped about this, let them know the why. Why do we need this data? Why do I need your help? Because if you have that why, you're much more likely to think it's fun, and also much more likely to be accountable for the data that you actually submit.
And I think in terms of internal data reporters, the key here is also that you have actually, if you want, and after some work, you will have the processes within your control. And I'm sure there's someone else in your organization who are collecting data in one way, not least the financial side, who's done this for decades. Make sure to discuss with them and see what you can learn from their processes also in your processes, because it will be more and more alike, the financial reporting. Make sure also you get the management team on board and the people around you on board, so you can get the support you need and get people to prioritize the work to actually submit the data to you. So spend some time, think through the process once, but the good thing with the internal processes is that you can have them in your control, and you can replicate them next time you will collect the data again. And external data reporters, so the ones that are, for example, suppliers to you or key collaboration partners, they need to be treated a bit differently. One tip here is to engage with them really early on, give them a heads up that actually we will collect this data and we will need your support for it, but also to understand what their data looks like. Again, the underlying or source data. And you can lower the barrier for them to submit data to you by actually asking for that full underlying data set. And perhaps you are the one who is better positioned to aggregate and process and slice the data the way you want it. Yeah, sometimes better than asking the supplier to do it. And one thing that I experienced quite a few times during this reporting period is that the source data can look very different. Both comes in different formats, but it can also come in different languages sometimes. And I'm thinking of one specific example here where one of my customers she has subsidiaries across the globe, and ask each of the subsidiary to deliver waste data for her. And the waste data often comes from the local waste supplier, meaning it comes in different languages, but somehow they need, on top of their organization, they need to be able to aggregate all the data, meaning that plastic in Swedish must equal plastic in some other language. And instead of asking the subsidiaries or the local waste supplier to translate this and risk a lot of errors and also less engagement because everything gets too complex for them, we decided that the only thing she collects from them is the raw data file that they can get from their supplier. And then we created an automated mapping tool for them to use, where they can map all the different local waste fractions into one and the same categories in English, which is the language that they use. And I think this adds up maybe 10 to 15 minutes for the sustainability team when they have collected the data, but that is really nothing compared to forcing all the different subsidiaries and suppliers into the same process and ask them to do it in one certain way. And I think the risk there would be huge that some of them just drop off and feel like, why should I do this? I don't have time to do this for you.
Yeah, it's a good example. I also wanted to share some takeaway tips for you that you can implement right now for this current reporting season you might be in the middle of, but also some more long-term tips for how to improve your reporting processes going forward. So the first tip here then, the immediate action, is actually to do this data owner grouping analysis and write down the struggles you have with each type of data reporter. And there are more ways, of course, than internal and external that you can divide them by. But if you can identify the struggles, you can then afterwards put this against a timeline and start working towards it to solve them one by one. And This relates, of course, to the long-term action that we would suggest. So to reduce the amount of work that you need to do for next year, we recommend that you set up a sub-goal to collect the data at least one more time, so bi-yearly or quarterly, because then you can test and implement the new strategies that you come up with and create, and that will increase your readiness for next reporting period.
I think we tricked the system a little bit. We added 2 insights into one here, but now let's go into the next one. Yeah, number 2. That was the longest one, just a heads up.
So number 2, ask for more data than you need for your reporting. This can feel super counterintuitive if you're already deep down into that data, data work, that you should ask for more data. But it is actually simplifying a lot if you ask for data in the right way. Let's take an example. In most companies, data is collected by KPI. So if I want to understand the gender balance, I would ask for how many men and women are we in this company, and then I would calculate the percentage split. The problem with that is that you, on the reporting level, only have access to that specific number. And the problem arises when someone asks to see this number cut in a different way. You have no ability to slice and dice this data any differently. Another problem, if you only have this number, is that you need to go back to the data reporter if you want to see it in any different way. So perhaps it's not enough to see just men and women. I also want to see it if they are full-time or part-time employed. Then I need to go back. And then my data reporter needs to do the work twice, because they probably already did some work to deliver the first number to you, and this creates a lot of frustration. And then lastly, if you want to look a bit more long-term, you also lose the data traceability and transparency that you need, not least for the coming CSRD reporting.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great example in terms of social data. I have another example in terms of environmental data. And I think ask always for all the data you can get if it makes sense. But I'm thinking about business travel data, for example, where most companies use some kind of travel agency or some kind of external partner that have all the data in one format. And instead of asking your reporters for example, the CO2 emissions from air travel during a certain period, ask them for the full data set where you can actually get the information on everything from the dates to who was traveling and where did they go and how many stops did they do on the way and so on. And you need to understand this in order to also drive the change you want to do. You need to understand what is the most frequent type of business travel in your organization, who is traveling the most, who should you knock on the shoulder and say like, hello, we need a better strategy here, or also to understand like whether those very common travels can be replaced by, for example, train travel or a digital meeting sometimes. And it's impossible for you to do that type of analysis if you only have the aggregated number of the total CO2 emissions.
That is a very good example. But the immediate action here, if you collected the data on the KPI level, is actually to follow up with your data reporters and try to understand what the underlying source data look like, and if you perhaps should collect that next time instead. Which relates to the long-term action here. You will need this anyways for CSRD requirements. So the more you can understand the underlying source data now, the more prepared you are for coming CSRD.
And one step ahead of your auditor as well.
Yeah.
But I think one thing here, I mean, ask for more and more and more. It has to be some kind of limits, and it's of course you need some guidance, or you need to give some guidance to your data reporters. And to do that, it's important for you to go back to your business strategy. What is crucial for you in order to do the change you want to do, and ask for the data that makes sense for that purpose.
All right, let's go to the third one. Don't only focus on one reporting at a time. And as with the previous insight, this might feel counterintuitive if you feel like one reporting is plenty already. But this is actually something we see quite a lot. Quite a few of our customers report on multiple reporting standards or to multiple stakeholders. And here, our tip is really to compare the different requirements in each standard and report against each other. Quite often, you need the same type of data to report on these different standards, but it needs to be processed in a bit different way. So can we create a data strategy that accounts for all of these different reporting needs? We really are one step ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't have any customer only reporting on one standard. Most of them reports on several, and it can be different standards such as GRI, CDP, SBTR. It's an abbreviation soup when it comes to sustainability, and you need Google as your best friend sometimes. But it can be many different standards, but it can also be sometimes very specific requirements from one key customer, for example, or investor-specific requirements. And what we see is that most of them always ask for kind of the same data. They all want energy data, they all want emissions data, but they do it in different ways, and they have slightly different definitions on their KPIs. So to bring you one example here as well, I have had this reporting season, which is great to see many customers reporting on water data. And in one specific case, I remember that we had one standard asking for the amount of water withdrawn in the organization, meaning like the water they take out from the tap. And then they had another customer-specific requirement asking for the volume of water withdrawn from groundwater, meaning they asked for more details. And just imagine if we would have started this data collection that is as complex as you mentioned now, just asking for the first definition and then had to redo the same thing just to also get the information about the water body source. I think that would have been super frustrating. So it's worth spending the time before rather than after, because it will be more time efficient for you. And for everyone involved.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. And actually, one of the most requested services that we have is to create these data strategies and data inventories, because it does simplify reporting so much.
Where we map different data points against each other. That's the purpose of them.
And it's a job I know not a lot of sustainability managers love to do, but fortunately we do. So a job that can be easily outsourced.
Yeah.
So the immediate action here is if you started your reporting already, start with just a bit. So start with the most common data categories. As you mentioned, Sophie, for example, energy is asked for by most standards and most stakeholders. So you can start with 1 or 2 or 3 categories, but then in your long-term plan, make sure you do this for your whole reporting need. You're gonna need it again for CSRD, but it's also gonna make your life so much easier. So the more you can front load here, the better for yourself.
Yeah, and this goes not least for CSRD. I know you are many of you who are struggling with preparations and everything for CSRD, and those who have looked into it knows that they ask for very specific definitions of each of the data points. So it is important although it's been some alignment between CSRD and the standards of CSRD to for example, GRI, TCFD, and CDP, and so on, they are not yet fully complementary. And believe it or not, sometimes when the CSRD standards are not covering something, because those cases happens as well, they are asking you to look into the GRI standard, for example, and this is, for example, for entity-specific disclosures. So make sure to understand all the data points and do this analysis before kicking off the full data collection. I think that's the key here.
Good. So we talked a lot about, or a lot of example has been numerical, but our next insight is to collect the qualitative data you need to improve your understanding as well. So make sure that you ask your data reporters qualitative questions that will enhance your understanding of the numbers you do get reported. It will save you a lot of time, since you are most likely not the one closest to the operations. There will be someone else who knows better why data looks like it does, and you would want that information. additionally, someone who is reporting numerical data to you have probably already seen that, wait, there's a data outlier here. Energy consumption is super high in May, or we have a spike of something else in October, and they would know why, and you want to get access to that information. So ask for it straight away. And this also enables you to be one step ahead of your auditor, but also your management team, because if you don't ask this question, they will do when they see these data outliers.
Mm-hmm. I think this is one of my favorites when it comes to all the insights we bring today, but it's also, as you say, those that report the data, those are the ones closest to the numbers. They will be the ones able to explain it. And I have also one example from this reporting period, but one customer who experienced an unexpected decrease in fuel consumption in one of their sites, although they did everything they could to reduce the amount of fuels used. And then she had to go back to the reporter and ask him, first of all, keep her fingers crossed that this person was still there. It could have been so that this person actually quit since this increase happened, or that they also, I mean, it's also a thing that they should remember what happened in January 2023 when this peak happened. So it is much better to ask for this data right away. Very often there is a logical reason behind it, or it can be some error, but then you would have captured it if you had also a comment related to it. And make sure to do that right away when you ask for the numerical data. Mm. And I think what is good here is also that it makes the reporters actually responsible of the data and accountable for the data they actually report. And they need to reflect a little bit on why something looks like it does. And hopefully also, in the best case, be a little bit triggered on reporting even better number to you the next time.
Yeah. And what should you do then right now if you're in the middle of your reporting period? Well, then you could just send out a generic request actually to everyone reporting data to ask them to complement what they already have reported or what they are to report, depending on where you are in your reporting journey right now, and ask them to explain any sharp increases or sharp decreases, so you have that information and don't need to go back once again. And for more long-term strategy, we really encourage you to move to a more frequent data collection pattern. As you said, Sophie, remembering what happened in January 2023 can be quite hard if you are still in the organization even. So to ensure that you don't lose a lot of insights along the way that can be super valuable for you, collect this data more often, bi-yearly, quarterly, monthly, depending on what type of data it is. And that is actually also something that makes reporting a lot easier, because if you do something once per year, it's a restart every time. Don't remember exactly what you did last year, and you need to get into that mental thinking again. But if you do this quarterly or monthly, it becomes one of your habits that you just do, and then you remember how you do it and where you should find your data, for example.
Yeah, and also a habit for the data reporters. And what I've seen among those who are doing this very well is that if you can distribute the responsibility of reporting into the organization and make reporting a normal task for the reporters, they will also be the ones responsible for passing on this knowledge to the people that comes after them, rather than having you being the one that needs to onboard all the data reporters once a year every time. So that's actually a great benefit of that. And I think this is a good bridge actually to our last and final insight, because because collecting data more frequently also means that you can actually feedback and provide insights on the data to the data reporters more frequently. And if you don't do that, how can you then expect the data reporters to actually identify when they have any outliers if they never see the data in any context or in any relation to something else?
Good point.
So the fifth one, go for.
Let's dive into it. So the fifth insight, make sure to get back to your data reporters. And we know that once you have conducted your full reporting, you are quite fed up with it. At least I felt so. I wanted to put that in a drawer, not look at it again. But really take the time to thank those who helped you and also feedback on the data they actually submitted. And feedback on the data that has been collected. What does it look like? How does it look compared to last year? How does it look compared to the whole company? And so on. That's a very, very good start.
And feedback on the data is one thing, but don't forget also to feedback on the process where the data actually was collected, and ask for feedback on the process from the reporters as well. But I have a few examples where they have been really good at actually feedbacking back to their data reporters, saying like, you are one of the suppliers who are always in time with the numbers, and thanks a lot for that. We will, and this is something that we will really consider going forward, and it can be very, very powerful to use this kind of information. And also if you can tie it somehow to your business and your overall company, saying like, thanks to your reduction of X% of emissions, it helped us to do this reduction or something, and that's also very, very great to know.
And as important as giving back feedback on the data that has been collected, it's to feedback on data that couldn't be collected as well. So when you go into this reporting period, you have a vision of everything you want to collect, but then perhaps it turns out that not all data was available, it was not available in the way you wanted it to be, or we actually needed to create some new data for it to be reported, and it was just too little time when it was high season for this. So by understanding what data couldn't we collect today and why, and do that together with the data reporter, you have the time to actually create those processes needed for you to be able to collect this data for next reporting season.
And I think that is for standard purposes, right? You as the one in charge of the reporting, you know what data you need in order to comply to all the standards. But don't forget also what data the reporters and people out spread out in the organization actually need to drive their change. So one thing that we actually do is to book up sessions with the data reporters and different teams within the organizations to understand what data they need in order to make a better sustainable impact. And I had one of those meetings last week when I met with a procurement team in one organization. And there we realized they are super interested in understanding more about their suppliers, more about the material they purchase, but they felt that the numbers they reported in terms of the reporting standards weren't enough. So they actually wanted to add more KPIs and more metrics. And that is really interesting. And not least, actually, we talked quite a lot about the EU taxonomy. And if you don't get the procurement team on board in terms of this discussion, how can you then expect your green capex and green opex to increase? So I think this is super important as well, to actually involve different people in the organization. And it was really nice because this group wasn't part of the initial stakeholder mapping that we did when this customer onboarded, but now we have another team as an ambassador within that company, and that's really, really great.
Yeah, that is great. So what should you do then to get to that point? Well, immediately book feedback sessions already now with your key data reporters to discuss what they reported, any improvement opportunities, and so on. And here I would really start with the ones who are most engaged, who think this is fun, who understand the value this brings to the company and to sustainability at large, because then you can use them and examples from there as ambassadors, as you say, but also as examples for others who might not be as engaged. And for the long-term strategy, be a bit more proactive. Don't just come to these data owners, every time you need them to report and ask for exactly what you need, but go there before the data collection to actually understand what type of data would help them, as you say, to improve sustainability in their part of the operations. That's a great way to drive engagement.
Yeah, and I think this is really how you go from reporting only to doing real change. And after all, it's not in the reporting standard that you will make the most sustainability impact. It will be in the operations of your business. That's last famous words.
Yes.
Well.
Yeah, that was actually all we wanted to share from our insights. We do have a Q&A, and I see that there are some questions here. So for those of you who want to stay, feel free to do so, and we answer those questions. And if there was any questions for us specifically, or you want to know more about SustainLab, connect with us. You see our contact details on the screen.
Yeah, please do. Would be great.
That would be great. But let me open the questions tab. And actually also in relation to our last point of feedback, if you have any feedback from us, please
Not
share
from
it.
us, but to us.
To us. To us. Okay. Let's take the first question here. Which of these tips would you recommend to prioritize?
Good question.
Yeah.
We already sliced it down into 5 insights from quite many more from the beginning, but let me think.
Yeah, what's your favorite?
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, there are different, depending on where you are in your organization, of course, and what you feel is most needed. But if you haven't really started with any one of the things we were discussing now, I would suggest, and if you are in the middle of the reporting as well, I would ask you to start with like asking for the full data set, because then you can, when you have that, then you can do the then you can like understand more of the context. You can do the mapping of the data points. You can build upon many of the other insights later. But for now, make sure to ask for the full data set. And also, I think you mentioned it, Maria, but if you are in the middle of the sustainability reporting right now and haven't asked for contextual data, for example, maybe you can send out a additional request or an additional email, or however you do it, just asking for, please make a quick analysis of the numbers you report, and if you have any outliers, please provide me with some information on why you think those outliers have appeared, and then at least you can get some input without asking for it too much. What do you think? Any thoughts?
No, I agree, and I really like this. Compare all your reporting requirements and all your standards. I know it can feel like a daunting work, but we see it again and again that it helps so much and makes reporting so much smoother. But then you also need to have this access to more data. They go hand in hand. All right.
There's another one.
Yeah.
You see it.
So, I think this is a common one that we hear. I don't have time for CSRD. What should I do? It is. It's going to be a lot more work with CSRD. How can we prepare that in the best way?
More and more things to do. Get more people on board, but maybe that's hard for you to do quick. But I think one thing here, we have been talking a lot about this, like mapping and understanding your data points and everything. And I know all of us are in the same boat now. We all need to prepare for CSRD sooner or later. And here I think it's a good idea to actually go together with and collaborate with some other companies or other sustainability managers that that go through the same process as you do, and ask them to divide it, so someone can understand the energy data better, someone else can understand the water data better, and a third one can dive into the HR or the social parts of the data. And not only within your organization, but also across the different organizations, because you will be a lot of people going through this now. And that is also what we do sometimes when we provide the customer circles, right?
Yeah, exactly. Put people together who share the challenge with you. But I also think, this is a fair comment. Like, I don't have time for CSRD. I talked to a potential customer yesterday who said that they right now report to about 100 data points, and with CSRD they see that this will be about 700. So of course that's 7 times as much. And if you don't look into your processes and make sure you make efficiency gains, that's going to take you 7 times as long time. with CSRD, I of course speaking in favor for ourselves here, but I really think a platform or a support tool will be crucial, because otherwise you just need 7 times as many people. That's just reality.
Yeah. That's true. All right. Do you want to pick? Yeah, let's go for. I have started to collect data, but only 70% have gotten back to me. Approximately 70%. Yeah, I think that is also quite a common challenge, especially if you have very distributed data owners. I don't know exactly in this case what type of data you have been collecting, but I can just refer to some processes where we have been collecting energy data from a lot of different tenants across Sweden, and not everyone are super happy to engage in this. And at some point you need to, you can chase them for a while, but at some point you need to close the books and provide the data to the next part in your organization. And what you can do there is sometimes, first of all, I think you need to understand how much, like 70% of the data, but what is those missing 30%? Are they related to your major supplier? Maybe it requires another push there. Or is it just distributed different suppliers? Maybe you can go back and look to the data that you reported last year, or you can compare this specific supplier to one another and make an estimate of the figures that you would have expected them to report. Sometimes we need to make those assumptions. But what is super important is to note them down, because the auditor will ask you, the management team will ask you, and not least you will ask yourself next year when you sit here and ask and wonder, like, where did I get this number from? So note all your assumptions down, but it is often okay to do them.
Yeah, and I would also say this, like at one point you also need to be done. But what you can do there is, again, think about this: what can I do immediately right now? I can use an assumption that I note down. I can do a last push. I can use a previous year's number or whatever it could be. But you could also then think long term: what can I do to engage with these 30% that do not report? How can I get them to report? Can I simplify reporting for them? Will it actually be easier if I ask for the full data set? If I ask for the data more often, will that help? So I think for this challenge, which is common, you can apply quite a few of the insights we have shared today.
Yeah, and also if you're not one of the major customers to one of your suppliers, they might not prioritize you as much as they do for the major customers. But what you can do then is to ask, like, what data do they provide their major customer with? And then see if that data makes sense for you in some way. So maybe you don't have to, as we talked about before, sometimes it's better to just ask for the data and then you can do the job yourself, rather than adding more and more and more requests for this single supplier that needs to answer to all their different customers. I think this will be better now with CSRD, but still this year and probably also next year, it's going to be quite different questions that the suppliers get. We are running a little bit out of time. Do we have time for the last one? Or a last one?
Yeah, one more, and then I think we need to wrap up. But can you please tell us a bit more about reporting for multiple standards? I guess that's something you have done a lot.
Yeah, I just assume this is related to what we talked about, like data inventory of different standards and mapping different data points to one another. Please feel free to reach out if you want to, and I can also reach out to you. I have your name here, and tell you more about it. But what we do there is to, first of all, look into all the standards and requirements you need to report on. So all the standards, all the specific requirements from customers, from investors, and from other stakeholders. And also don't forget that what you need in your organization to drive the change you want. And then we look like, okay, so here is energy data related in all of these, or water data in all of these. And we look for the most granular definition of the data point. So for example, going back to my example before, when I talked about this water, the amount of water versus the amount of water from a specific water source, then it's actually better to always go for the more detailed definition, and then you can aggregate the number in order to get to the other number. So what we need to understand is like what is the most granular or detailed definition that you are asked to report, and then we can map it and make sure we can provide insights to all the different KPIs you are asked to submit.
Yeah, and I mean here again, a platform helps. The work needs to be done, but then as long as we capture that granular data, it gets aggregated up to all the reports. So it's super smooth once it's done.
Some work in the beginning, and then you can enjoy the
trust the process.
Exactly, trust the process. Yeah, I think that was the last one, and see we are running out of time. But thanks a lot for everyone listening in, and let us know if you have any thoughts or any questions. We will be super happy to connect with all of you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And just to mention, we do speak Swedish, and we have colleagues also from across the globe. So if you're not familiar or comfortable in speaking English, please reach out in whatever language you want, and then we will see if we can catch it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye.